Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new episode of Bets and Banter. And today on the show, we're talking, of course, about UFC 294. The rematch is going down in the desert. You've got Alexander Volkanovski, pound for pound #1, challenging Islam Makhachev once again for that lightweight title. So should be an exciting card. A lot of good talent throughout, but a lot of big favorites as well. So who better to dissect the card with than one of the sharpest in the game, your friend of mine, Just Win Baby, back on the show. And hopefully we'll have a special guest joining us later as well. But Rich, tell the people how you feeling today and how you feeling about this card, my man.
Feeling amazing, gonna smash the card, got some great takes, put in too much research, 2 hours on Jinh Frey, but hopefully it's worth it. But yeah, ready to go, man.
I love it. And because there's a lot of big favorites, that also means that for people like you and me, oftentimes we're looking for big underdogs. And I think there's some opportunities, especially on this preliminary card. So without further ado, man, let's get into it. As we always do on Bets and Banter, we start at the bottom of the card and work our way on up, folks. And so what you can expect is the first fight of the night, Bruno Silva taking on Shara Magomedov. This is a fight where, I always try and talk about fights from multiple angles, right, Rich? We talk about the narratives, but we also talk about the fights themselves and what we expect from the footage. And when you look at a guy like Bruno Silva, I've always loved this guy. Not because he's the world's best fighter, but because he's fun. He brings a banger type of style. He puts it all on the line. And he's a guy that's almost always going to be kill or be killed. And you look at a lot of his first round knockouts, fun stuff. You look at the fight that went the distance with Pereira, that's his shining moment in the UFC. But I did think he took a lot of damage in that fight. I thought that showed in the Mearshart fight. I know he said he was sick, but I also just think when you're getting virtually TKO'd by Gerald Mearshart, that's a bit of a red flag to me at this stage of your career because he's such a dangerous striker. And he's got the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. But you and I both know, Andrew Sanchez absolutely dominated him in the grappling. It's just that he has no cardio, no ability to push into that third round. So he has good defensive grappling instincts for the most part. But I also think that it hasn't reared its head in a while. He's been submitted many times in his career. And in the times that he's been submitted in the UFC, it's been more of the club and sub type scenario, except Brendan Allen. But I think that looking at his career overall, I think the trajectory is starting to go downwards a little bit, but he's still a good fighter, fought a lot of good guys, fought in Russia many times. So he's a guy that's a worldly fighter, traveled all over. I wouldn't be comfortable laying chalk against him, but Shara is going to attract a lot of public attention. He's the A side in this matchup. That's why he's favored here, in my opinion. But also, he's a dangerous striker on the feet. He's got a good record of knockouts himself. And I think that odds makers are looking at Bruno Silva's chin deteriorating a little bit over time and maybe indicating that they want to, shade towards that. But when I'm looking at it, I don't feel comfortable laying the chalk against him. How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of this Bullet guy. He's had some fights with modified rules. They're not allowed to touch the ground for 30 seconds. Some YouTube fights that he's been having, he's had quite a few of them. He's only got one fucking eye. So, that's a big red flag for me, someone who can barely fucking see. So yeah, I won't be betting on him. He's been buried on the prelims, the opener. I'm not keen on that. They could have given him a spot further up the card if they wanted to highlight him. Bruno is no bitch, man. He went 3 rounds with Alex Pereira, held his own. He TKO'd Brad Tavares, who's notoriously durable. They could have given this Bullet guy a easier matchup here for sure, man. Silva is strong in the stand-up. Obviously, he lacks the ground game, been subbed a few times. Bullet was, I don't know what he is now, I haven't checked the prices in a minute, but he was plus 2,000 to finish by submission. I know he has no subs, but neither did Jiri before he subbed Glover. I've seen interviews with him where he's talked about he wants to put on exciting fights. He wants to, he even said pretty much verbatim, I could choke people if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I want to strike and make it exciting. It's probably not the smartest mentality. These are MMA fights. If you wanted to do that, you should have gone to Glory. I don't think his ceiling's high. Yeah, he's got a cool name. He's got one eye. That's all great, and I think he's got the name. But I don't know if he's for real or not. I don't want to lay the juice on it. Maybe poke at that submission price, and maybe you get lucky. But I'm staying away myself, man. It's not for me.
I feel you. This is a tricky fight as far as I'm concerned because Bruno Silva, when you expect him, to get finished by Alex Pereira, he ends up finding a way to sneak it to the distance. When you expect him to go under easily against Andrew Sanchez, he ends up nuking him out in the third round. I actually picked him, I think, in the third round there. But in any case, it's like you just look and he's not a guy that always is dominating his fights. A lot of times he's having really sketchy moments and then wins the fight because he has fight-changing power. But I think his opponent kind of checks that box as well. So really fun scrap here. I think they might have put this out here, Rich, just to get some violence going and kick off the card on the right note because it's early in the day, right? I feel like they want to set the tone a little bit with some violence. And I think these are two guys that are pretty reliable to go out there and put on a violent affair.
Do you want to know what, though? I think if anyone's going to finish, it's going to be Bruno. I don't like this bullet guy's style, man. I don't like the flashy kicks, the spinning back fists. To me, that just means you've run out of ideas. You haven't got the technical ability on the feet. And I really don't think he has. He's quite new to MMA, 7 fights in 2021, 5 fights in 2022, not much before that. I just think he's flavor of the month, man. It's the name and shit. I think it probably goes to decision unless Bruno finishes him. Over 1.5 is a good look. Don't know what the price is now. I need to catch up on that. But yeah, they're my thoughts, man.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll close with is I did hear Bruno Silva say he completely changed his approach to camp in this one. And he said, all I'm going to do is win by any means necessary. He's like, I don't care about this amount of knockouts versus that amount of knockouts and all that. He's like, all I care about is winning by any means necessary. If I'm betting an underdog, bro, I do like to hear them talking like that. Just because I want to know that you're going to pursue the path of least resistance. Why go out there and strike with this guy if that's what he wants? Try and wrap him up in the clinch, grab a hold of him, make him uncomfortable. I think that would probably be a good idea. But in any case, let's move to the next fight where Jinh Frey is taking on Victoria Dudakova. And you'd have to think Jinh Frey probably fighting for her job in this fight, on a pretty rough string of performances, 2-5 overall in her UFC run. So don't want to see her run that to 2-6 here. But on the other side, Victoria Dudakova, definitely the flavor of the month, as you would say. Heavily favored in this fight. She was heavily favored in her last matchup, but we didn't really get the most conclusive result there. Can't take anything away from her, in my view, for that fight either, but it's just kind of a non-entity. So you look at her approach on Contender Series. She was an underdog pretty bigly in that spot. She was able to go out there and get the win. Pretty impressive, but she also suffered an injury in that fight. And because the last fight was not extended, we didn't really get to see her kind of respond to that and show, what she looks like since then. So I do think I have some question marks here, certainly for a girl with this little experience. Jinh Frey, twice the professional experience, but I think Jinh Frey is a little bit chinny. I do think the UFC put this together, trying to get Dudakova a win, trying to get her, on track in the UFC, but they can't always get what they want, Rich. So what do you think about this matchup? And are you bullish on the underdog Jinh Frey in this bet?
Yeah, like I said, I spent like 2 hours on it and I've got like a 1-minute breakdown. But hopefully the fight goes my way. I'll tell you what's going to happen. Frey will win the decision or she's going to get armbarred from guard. That's what I took away from the tape. You go watch Jinh Frey versus Reed, even Loma and DePaula. They were all throwing arm bars up from bottom, man, and they all almost got it. Even Loma, who we know is a Muay Thai girl. Dudakova sub is 400. I think usually that is her path to victory. I know we've seen the fluke or freak accident TKO thing in the last fight, but that's very low percentage. That's not happening half the time. I don't really think she's a minute winner. She got lucky in a Dana White Contender Series. She fought a complete bum and was able to get the top control and stay there. And that's what she does, man. She does not work from top control. She is comfortable to try and sit there and burn the clock out. But Frey's got 88% takedown defense. She's strong. She's not going to get taken down. But what Dudakova does do, she puts the body lock on. And if she can't take you down, she's happy to pull you on top of her. So I could definitely see that. And I could see Frey winning minutes. The only worry about playing Frey is she could win 2.5 rounds. And then it could be like an armbar with like 2 minutes to go. So I think I'm going to put a couple of units on Frey, money line, and then cover myself with like a unit on the submission from Dudakova just for some insurance. But I do think Frey should be favored here. I know she's lost a few bouts, but we're not wiki capping here. We're not tapology betting. It doesn't matter if they've lost their last couple of bouts. It's about experience. We know the oldies have been going on a run lately. Frey is 38, so hopefully that continues here, man.
Yeah, the one thing that worried me about Frey here is I wasn't really clear on whether she was working with some of the people she has in the past, a Safe Sayud, some of the contacts she has in Texas. Definitely seems like she's training out of 10th Planet Fort Worth, which is her husband's gym, also known as Frey MMA. So I definitely think that, Jinh Frey, her physical decline is a little bit evident. One of the other things I did point out on my first look was Dudakova started at 35, came down to 115 over the course of her amateur run. And on the other side, Jinh Frey was a 105 pounder in her prime, kind of moved up to 115 just to get into the UFC. So those are a couple of my concerns. But in terms of her physicality, I mean, she is pretty built up. And I do think Polyana Viana underrated hitting power. I know that this is going to sound crazy, but she knocked out Amanda Hebos back in the day pretty cleanly. And that was something I had taken note of. I bet her by sub against Jinh Frey for 1 unit, but I bet her ITD for 1 unit as well, just in case. And it ended up being a smarter play on the ITD because she had multiple paths to victory, whereas I'm not sure if Dudakova is as likely to win this fight by knockout. I know a lot of people are playing that prop, but Jinh Frey is somebody that's going to get chin checked by strikers. I think in a grappling match, it's probably more likely, like you said, that she would lose by submission or probably be pretty competitive in a decision here. So shout out to Cody Saftik and the crew. The CF model is normally strong on women's MMA underdogs, no matter who they are. And especially at a big price like this, I think Dudakova has a lot still to prove. So should she be favored? I think a lot of people would agree, yes. I think you disagree, but I think a lot of people would say yes. But to this degree, I think it is a lot of confidence without as much evidence. So for me, it's a dog or pass situation. Go ahead, Rich.
I'll add some context as well. If you're betting Dudakova money line, you're an idiot. You shouldn't be betting her at this price in this fight with 5 fights to a name, 6 fights to a name. And Frey is not declining, man. Yeah, she got chin checked by fucking Polly. But like Liam said, she does hit hard. She has got a win over Rebus back in the day. Dudakova isn't TKOing her. She's got a 4-punch blitz, which she doesn't commit to. It's purely to close the distance and get the body lock. All she wants is a takedown, man. And I'd be surprised if she gets it. If she does, it's pulling Frey on top of her. And then she might get her arm bar. I do think that is very live. But people trashing on Frey, man. She was unlucky to lose to Vanessa. She was unlucky to lose to Reed. They was only like a few months back or so, man. She's decent. She's got the experience. And I don't understand the Frey hate, man.
Yeah, I bet Vanessa plus 225 in that fight and scored a 29-28 Frey. But that's why I never fade a stripper in Vegas. I've made that case on this show multiple times. So for me, that was the angle there with Vanessa. But yeah, we're in a totally different situation here. So it should be a fun fight. And it's not like Dudakova is training in UAE. She's training in Thailand as best I could tell from my research leading up to this. So I couldn't really get a clear grasp on who her training partners were. And you see a lot of high level fighters train in Thailand, but not at this gym that I'm looking at. So again, it's a wait and see situation for me. But we can move along to the next fight where Nathaniel Wood is going to take on Mohammad Naimov. And I have an opinion on this one, Rich. So I'm going to kick it to you first, brother. What do you think?
I'll make it simple, man. Fight doesn't go the distance is the play. It was plus 100. Don't know what it is now. I'm going off a couple of days ago when I bet it. Wood shouldn't be at 145. I've seen him come out this week and say 145 is his home. It's a mistake, in my opinion. He's being lazy. He could make 135 if he wanted to and be more disciplined. He was lucky against Feely and he was smart against Jourdain to wrestle fuck him. But Feely dropped him multiple times. Feely had a 5-inch reach and height advantage. Naimov has only got a 2-inch height advantage, so it's not that significant. But sooner or later, Wood will get put out at 145. He doesn't belong there. Is Naimov the one to do it? I don't know. Probably not. He's low volume. He does have power in his hand. We've seen that against Malarkey. But he's not a minute winner. So if you're betting Naimov, I would recommend KO or don't bet him. But I'd be inclined to bet fight doesn't go the distance. Wood should submit him. Colin Anglin should have on Dana White's Contender Series. It was criminal that he didn't. Naimov can't wrestle. He can't grapple. He can resist for a round when he's fresh. But then, come round 2-3, it becomes too easy to grapple him. So Wood should get the submission if he's got any kind of intelligence about him, man.
I think that that's fair play. I think that when you look at a guy like Nathaniel Wood, Here's one thing that I came across in my handicap that I didn't get an explanation on anywhere, and I'll look into it a little bit further. But why did he pull out of his grappling match with Aljamain Sterling? Because he was scheduled to have a grappling super fight with Aljo at Polaris, and then all of a sudden he pulled out of the match, and it was Mike Grundy on short notice. And he had done a bunch of promotion for it, and I even think some people said in breakdowns this week, if I'm not mistaken, that he had done this grappling match, but he did not follow through with that grappling match. He said he was going to do it. There's pictures of him and Aljo going to do it, but then it never came to pass. So I'm going to look into why.
He did the right thing, bro. He would have got subbed in a round. That's why.
Yeah, I agree with you, which is why I'm like, so he's a good enough grappler, but like even in his last fight, against Jourdain, when he was getting multiple takedowns, it's not like he was like close to submitting him. He hasn't been close to submitting somebody really since 135 pounds, as best as my memory serves. So when I look at a guy like Nathaniel Wood, I think he has a low center of gravity. He's like 5'6". So he's definitely going to have opportunities to get to the hips. Naimov's not the greatest defensive wrestler. So I think there's opportunities here for Nathaniel Wood to try and work in that grappling, leverage that. But we see a lot of the time he likes to work on the feet. He's got a lot of confidence in his counter game. He got dropped in the first exchange by Andre Fili, and then he was able to drop him back. He's able to get back in his face. He's a fighter really through and through. But there's been opportunities in the past where a guy like Casey Kenny went out there and just cleanly outstruck him mostly on the feet. He was able to mix in a couple takedowns here and there to keep him guessing. But a lot of the time he was able to just outwork him with better strikes on the feet. And I think that a guy like Naimov, number one, is going to have the local crowd support. I truly believe that. And I think that when you have a guy, with the name Muhammad fighting in the desert at plus 275, you got to give me a damn good reason not to bet it, right? So when I'm looking at this fight on paper, I say Nathaniel Wood, good fighter. But last time out was pretty recently, and Andre Fili on the scorecards, on the UFC stats, it says he knocked him down once. On the Liam Picks Fights scorecard, he knocked him down twice. So Nathaniel Wood has a negative knockdown ratio on my scorecards across his UFC career. He's not the most powerful guy on the feet. He can outland people. He can outvolume them. He can do a lot of good work. Nothing wrong with him as a fighter. Good fighter. Minus 300. I think that this is where it could go wrong, right? I think everybody sold themselves on Jamie Malarkey last time out. He's the minute winner. He's the better fighter. He's bigger. He's more skilled. He's this, that, and the other, and he's got UFC experience. How'd that work out for him? He ended up flatlined on the canvas. By the way, if Nathaniel Wood gets dropped like he did in his last two fights, what if a jumpy referee goes, that's it, and he pushes him away, and Naimov hands up in the air for Tajikistan, the stadium's going crazy. All I'm saying is, I'm going with the underdog here. I think that this is a live underdog opportunity. I think it's a dog or pass situation. I think if you're playing Nathaniel Wood by sub is the play. I actually said the same thing to you when I first looked at this fight. I was like, man, Naimov on the ground, he's nothing to write home about, certainly. But he's also explosive. And I've seen a couple times he just muscles his way out of things that look like they're going to finish him. So he is not an easy guy to put away. And I think that right now, ultimate motivation, he's going to come in really prepared for this, as far as I can tell, in terms of the weight preparation. I like it. Let me see if we can get Mohammad Naimov across the finish line. So I like the underdog there, man. I think he's going to win the fight outright. I'm picking him. But I also think your play on the fight not to go the distance, not a bad look, because I think his best chance to win is to win by knockout. And Nathaniel Wood, let's not forget the fact that he did start his UFC career with several finishes, WW. So I'm not going to say that he's been a prolific finisher, but he did have finishing moments in the past. And by the way, he hurt Andre Fili pretty bad in that last fight. Andre Fili, just a tough guy that's, difficult to get out of there. So we can move on to the next fight though, my man, because we got plenty more fights to discuss here. And shout out to the sharpest chat in the game. 51 people rocking with us live, and a lot of great comments being shared by the people that are rocking with us. So thank you guys for your feedback, and keep letting us know what you think of this next fight, because we got Anshul Jubli, the first ever road to UFC winner at 155 pounds. He is representing India, the second UFC fighter to do so, and he's taking on Mike Breeden here. Mike Breeden is fighting, I believe, out of Marathon MMA, the Trey Ogden gym. And he used to train with James Krause. You guys can go back and watch. James Krause is in his corner for a lot of his fights. And it's actually the saddest thing about the whole James Krause situation is that he was a very good corner. So, I think that Breeden could have benefited from continuing to have Krause as a corner if he wasn't betting on fights and doing whatever the fuck else he was doing. So, the the game gives and it takes away. But you look at Mike Breeden, pretty tough draw in terms of his strength of schedule. Alexander Hernandez and Terrence McKinney, both physical, strong, athletic guys, capable of winning fights by knockout. But also Natan Levy, he did a lot of good work in that fight. Both guys did. I thought Natan Levy won the fight. I'm seeing some people say otherwise. I thought it was a close fight. I thought it was a dog fight. I thought Natan Levy earned that fight. But I thought that Mike Breeden overperformed my expectations there. The things that I didn't like is that once you can get him down, it's not that he's easy to hold down. It's just that you can get him into a repetitive takedown sequence where it's just a little bit of up, down, up, down. Natan Levy had a lot of success mat returning him, which I think was a bit of a problem. And I think that his chin and his body are a little bit susceptible. I just don't think he's the most durable guy, 34 years of age. He's been finished a number of times. But looking at his skills on paper and how they match up with Jubli, I think he's going to have some opportunities here. I think that primarily exists on the leg kicks and his ability to potentially mix in his own takedowns or stuff takedowns. So I'm curious, my man, what you think about this fight. And I think that we might even have a special guest in the back cooking as well. So please give us your thoughts on this fight, and we'll see if somebody else has additional comments.
Yeah, I was hoping I'd be alone on Breeden this week, and then people started coming out of the woodwork with their Breeden bets, and it seems a bit mushy now, to be honest. But I still see some love for Jubli. Not sure why. I've seen some podcasters earlier in the week saying he's got power in his hands. He's the one the UFC wants to win for the Indian market, and it's just not true, man. Breeden's the side here. Nobody should be betting Jubli at this price. He is fucking shit. Literally, Jubli is a fake, man. If you go watch his fight against Kim, go watch round 2 when he's sitting on the stool and he's ready to quit. His corner man literally slaps him hard as fuck and tells him to sort himself out and go out there and win, man. You can just tell he's got quit in his eyes. He's a master in nothing. People have been telling me he's got power in his hands. He's a great wrestler. He's got a couple of single legs, man. That's about it. He's not athletic like Terrence McKinney, Alex Hernandez, even Natan Levy for one round, because he's notoriously a gasser. But they're big athletic guys, man. That's why they did their thing over Breeden. Jubli is not. He's not athletic. He's just not good, man. I think he's got an ego about him. I watched his interview. He's always talking about, I'm the face of Indian MMA. I'm going to put it on the map. I'm doing this for my people. And I just think he's a bit retarded, man. He should be doing it for himself, for his family, making some money. But he just keeps hyping himself up. He's an excellent hammer, fighting these regional Indian guys, blanketing them, winning boring decisions. But yeah, he's no fighter, man. And then he went fought in his debut in the UFC against Jenka, a Muay Thai guy. It took him all of a round to finally figure out that he had to take the guy down and wrestle fuck him and get his win there. But big whoop, me or you would have took Jenka down and wrestled him. And I've never wrestled a day in my life, man. So there's nothing to brag about. I literally think you give me 6 months and I'd kick the fuck out of this Jubli guy. He's absolutely shit. Breeden should win it. I'm curious to see if he comes in on weight, Breeden. To be honest, it is short notice for him. He is a bit of a fatty, but I like his style, man. He's got forward pressure. He's got power in his hands. He's game. He's got heart. And yeah, they're polar opposites. You got one guy with heart, one guy with a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. One guy with a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. So yeah, Breeden's the side. The money's coming in on him. Last time I looked, he was plus 250. I got plus 300. He opened at plus 600. If anyone's got a ticket on that, fair play to you. I'll be bragging about that all day. Breeden's sub, it's plus 2,000. I even think that's wide. If he does break this guy, I could easily see a rear naked choke in round 2 or 3. So yeah, what else can I say, man?
I think that's fair enough. I think that when you're looking at underdogs on this card, I did tell you I had some concerns about Mike Breeden just because, he's making a very quick turnaround. He got knocked out in his last fight. It's pretty quick, and he's making the fastest turnaround of any fighter on the card. And I kind of felt like it was like a UFC standing behind him with a gun to the head, like, hey, you want to take a flight to UAE and take a hard fight for us, or just get cut? And he was like, absolutely, boss. I'm getting on the flight right now. Where do you need me to go? So I just think that, Mike Breeden, the problem for me is I feel like I missed the best of it, right? I was talking and considering it. It was plus 300. I'm like, what should I do? Then it goes down. It's plus 275. I'm like, man, plus 275. I got to take a hard look at that. I go to the website. It's plus 267. I'm like, wow, this is dropping like a stone. And so for me, I just feel like I missed the best of it. I'm going to have some discipline here and let this one go. But I do think at a certain price, people were definitely getting the best of it. I think now it's a little bit more speculative. But Jubli definitely was an underdog in his last couple fights. That's a fact that we know. And I picked Jekka outright to beat this guy last time out. So I don't want to overreact here just because Mike Breeden's lost a couple fights, think he's incapable of winning a UFC fight. He almost beat Natan Levy and gave him a very good run for his money there. So, fair play to him.
Did
there's one guy with an opinion to add after you. Go ahead.
Did Breeden get knocked out in his last fight?
He TKO'd certainly, but he definitely got finished in the first round.
Yeah, I would say he got KO'd. Like I think there is a difference. I know I'm being pedantic, but I don't think he got KO'd stiff.
No. I mean, it wasn't the world's most brutal knockout or anything. That's fair. But what I meant was just like stopped in the first round, and normally they give you a medical suspension or whatever. And the UFC was probably like, yeah, fuck that. Like,
yeah.
What do you think about this one? Jewish bettor? Our surprise guest of the day. What's up, my man?
Yeah, nice professional English guest, and then you get to bring the American Jewish douchebag in to ruin the whole thing. What's up, my guys? Nice to meet you, Just Win, baby. Liam Pick Fights. What's going on, my man? Should I just go right in on this fight?
Please give us your thoughts, brother. In fact, I think you have a play on this one, if I'm not mistaken.
I do. So I do agree with what Just Win Baby said, man. This is starting to get a little bit of a square dog. Like, it's starting to get to the point where I'm like, but I got it in at plus 310. So the number I got, I'm pretty confident in. I think this is just a little bit of a market overcorrection. Jubli opened as a moderate dog in his first two fights versus his road to UFC competition. I think this is just, goes to show how basically a failure. I mean, the road to UFC was like, it just wasn't the highest level of competition. That Sedriques dude, he gassed after one round, complete adrenaline dump. The other guy, I couldn't rate him that high. He'd probably be closely lined with Breeden, if not an underdog. So I don't understand how Jubli's a minus 400 or whatever in this spot. Back in the day, so me and Liam are East Coast boys, so used to get the Dutch Master, right? My dude Liam, he'll remember the Dutch Master, and I used to have to walk down the street, and there was this guy. I was underage, quote unquote, right? I couldn't buy the tobacco. I couldn't buy the cigar to put the butt in, right? So when I got there, it was this new guy, and he looks just like Anshul Jubli, and you know what he says to me? He says, "ID, please." And it broke my heart, and for that reason, I'm fading Anshul Jubli because he looks like the guy that wouldn't give me the Dutch when I was underage. So there you go. Mike Breeden it is.
What an insane rationale for making a bet. But if it cashes, I always say, however you make your money, make your money. But I'll say this. When I look at Mike Breeden, I think the one misconception about him in the market is that he's like really bad at wrestling. I feel like that's the general consensus. But again, when you look at that Natan Levy fight, he made it pretty competitive with Natan in some of those wrestling exchanges. And there was a couple of times he surprised Natan with takedown attempts. So I do think that Mike Breeden's not a bad wrestler. Do I like the fact that he's from a Crouch gym and all this shit? No. That is the other thing that ultimately kept me off. As the number was getting less appealing, I was like, am I really going to bet a Kraus guy in Abu Dhabi? I was just like, no, I'm just going to let it go. But I think that, again, at the number, it was obviously the side. The market's agreed. It's come down substantially, almost 50 cents off the prices you guys are getting. And I just think that was the side. Here's the other thing. You can look and just let the market be your guide, right? He's never been this big an underdog, and he's fought Alex Hernandez and Terrence McKinney. You could argue that's because the market's learned more information and maybe he's worse than we thought he was, but it's like, is that really the case? I don't know. I think it's definitely a potential market overcorrection. So despite not thinking Mike Breeden's the best UFC fighter in the world, Jubli hasn't proven very much yet. And I do think that this is a step-up spot for him. So the UFC would love for him to win. You can't always get what you want. What happened to Arjun Buller? That was an experiment that they tried. Did it work out? It did not. all they can do is give people opportunities. Can you make the most of it? And I feel like it's going to be a tough opportunity for him.
I disagree with that as well. People telling me about the Indian market, the UFC want to break into it. Who gives a fuck about India? Like, Jubilee's going to have the coattails of India on his back. And
see, this is where I will disagree. I look into everything, right? Even my guy, Jewish bettor, has told me, he's like, dude, you go into things I never even think of. I'm a crazy person, dude. I look at the fact that UAE is expanding their trade relationship with India, and the fact that it's one of their biggest trading partners, and the fact that they have developed these relationships, because I look for everything, dude. I'll look at anything. I'll look at the global news. I'll look at the news today. I'll look at any single thing that I could get my hands on, new sponsorship, anything like that. So for me, I do think that the UFC would love to do more business with India. Here's another catalyst that's evident of that. They just signed another woman from India, first woman from India to be in the UFC. They want to get Indian talent in. But again, it's incumbent on them to deliver. They signed how many Mexican fighters before they found talents that they could develop into champions? Many. So I just think that this is another market that they'd like to build, but they're starting from scratch. So they got a lot of people, right? And from a lot of people, you'll find talent, but it'll take time and it'll take development. And if you listen to Jubli on the Road to UFC guys, because I went back and listened, he said that the state of jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai and whatever in India is terrible. I'm like, well, that's not a good selling point, my man. Like, and you want me to bet on you as a big favorite? He wants to put him on the map. God bless him for it. Best of luck. But it is a big undertaking here. So starts with one. Next up, Sedriques Dumas taking on Abu Azaitar. Speaking of guys that are pretty heavily favored, and I'm not quite sure that I'm following. Sedriques Dumas, listen, he's got everything on paper. He's an athletic guy. He can throw big kicks. He can throw big punches. He's pretty fast moving. But I went back and rewatched the Josh Fremd fight, and Josh Fremd was lighting him up. He rocked him multiple times in that fight and submitted him in kind of meme-like fashion. Guys, I'm a sucker for a good guillotine, but that was a very weird guillotine finish. He gets a shorthand grip into the fence, and the guy was quick tapping. And I think he was just exhausted and beat up and didn't want to be there anymore. That's my honest opinion. So Dumas is if we ran that back, I'd win that 9 times out of 10. Where? On the feet, he was getting hurt a little bit. And then on the ground, he got out grappled pretty cleanly. So I'm just maybe, but it didn't seem like that to me. He's got some athletic upside, and Abu Azaitar is tiny for the weight class, right? He doesn't check that many boxes you want to see. But the reason that we say tape is important is because when I went back and rewatched this guy, the MAB fight was a lot different than I remembered it. I thought MAB just beat this guy pillar to post every round. I thought, especially after that first round, he just cardio died. But even in round 2, when he was starting to cardio die, he almost knocked him out. He had MAB doing the dance and whatever, and then MAB had to grab a hold of him, and he was just a good clinch operator. MAB grabs a hold of your head, punches you in the face. He's just a difficult guy to fight. And when you haven't fought in years, this guy signed in 2018. He's had 2 fights since. He's not active. He just does this for whenever he wants to kick it around and throw another one down. But Dumas, again, Fremd is a big guy. That's the difference here. And that's the ultimate reason I have to favor him slightly. I favor Dumas minus 150 here, minus 175 at most. But that's why I think there's marginal value potentially on Azaitar here as he creeps over that plus 200 number. Just because I think on the feet, this will be a shootout in round 1 where Azaitar will be very live. He throws to the body, he throws to the head, and he's going to try and take this guy's head off. And by the way, social media A side by a huge margin. Nobody's ever heard of Sedriques Dumas over there. And by the way, he can't smoke weed over there. I know some people on the show might smoke a little marijuana. Okay. This guy is just going cold turkey after he smokes this monster joint on the way over there. Is his appetite going to be effed up? I saw somebody on Twitter point this out, and I was like, bro, this guy's a genius. That's a really good point. He's just going to be out there probably on the, post marijuana withdrawal rage, my man. So maybe he's going to give a beat down for that reason. But overall, I just can't get behind this guy until he proves a little bit more. Fremd was a big underdog. Everybody thought he was going to run through Fremd and make it look easy. Fremd, by the way, still hasn't worked out as a UFC level fighter. He's finding his footing. He's got a couple wins. He's got a couple losses. He's not a out and out UFC bona fide contender or something. So Fremd was able to go out there and get the jump on him. People didn't see it coming. Plus 190. Sound familiar? Similar price range. He got the jump on him. So Fremd's a younger guy. He's a bigger guy. All that's true. But this guy, Azaitar, is a social media side. He checks a couple other boxes for me. He's a local market fighter. I think they're going to go crazy for this guy when he's out there. So, you know, the Azaitar brothers, no prize. Their ground game falls apart a little bit when they get tired, but in that early going, they're a little bit tricky. So for me, I just don't want to fade these guys at significant chalk overseas. How do you feel about this one, Rich?
Yeah, I'm just waiting to bet Azaitar. First, though, I need to see his physique at the weigh-ins, man. Then I'll make a decision. But you can't bet Dumas at this price, this money line. It's stupid. Yeah, that's a good thing about the weed that you mentioned, man. You reminded me of that teacher from South Park. Marijuana's bad, okay, that guy. But yeah, I like Azaitar. Mackie, that's it. Need to see what he's like at weigh-ins, man, because he came in fat against Mark in his last fight. I can make allowances. It was during the pandemic or whatever. Yeah, Dumas is shit, man. He's crap. Brundage quit after a round. Still couldn't finish him. He was still getting reversed. Brundage was dropping for guillotines, pulling guard. So we give him every chance to win that fight. Azaitar's the side here, but I need to see what that physique's like, man, at face-offs first.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, I don't want to bet on love handle Azaitar. I want to bet on one and done Azaitar, where he comes in just looking like super shredded and then gets immediately flagged by the fake USADA that replaces USADA after USADA leaves. What do you think about this fight, my guy? TJB, check in. What do you think?
I think Abu Azaitar buys his Instagram followers, man. This is it right here. I think it's a lie, guys. I think this dude's buying his Instagram followers, but he's like part of some, like he's friends with the king of Morocco or something, if I'm not mistaken. So he's part of like royalty over there. That's where he's getting his fame from. But guy just seems like a little bit of a fraud to me. But Dumas, for what he has in athleticism, he lacks a ton of skill. Like there's just no skill whatsoever. The way he throws punches isn't right. Like the guy's just super green still, especially on the mat. So that being said, I think Abu Azaitar could out-experience him. I think he could use his veteran savvy. He's got the UFC time in octagon, albeit he could be a little bit stiff coming out since he's coming off a long layoff. That's the only real problem I have with it, right, is the long layoff. I just don't know what version of Azaitar I'm getting back at 35 years old. But, yeah, I think Azaitar is the side at this price. People will say like he's a little bit gassy, but he was fighting MAB, who could, drain the energy out of most people. Dumas himself don't have the best cardio, like we just mentioned before. He'd be smoking a weed. So, yeah, I like Azaitar here. I haven't bet it yet, but I'm just gonna wait and see where the line goes. If I get like plus 250 on this, beautiful. I'll be in all day. All day.
Yeah, and I think both of these guys have a wrestling path. The reason Dumas was able to out-wrestle Cody Brundage, in my view, was in part because Cody Brundage fatigued, but also because he's huge. He's just got this like length that makes it really difficult to deal with some guys. I'll tell you from personal experience, I felt like I was a pretty good wrestler, but there were some times when I'd get tied up by guys who are really long, really awkward. It makes it a little bit harder to deal with somebody when you're grappling and transitioning with them. And shout out to WW, says Abu Azaitar training with Team Khabib. There is a lot of pictures of these guys training with high-level people over the years. The thing that comes with money is really high-level designer drugs typically, and also, access to the best training in the world. So I think that in the lead up to this, he's probably taking it pretty serious. Also, his last time out, it was a pretty embarrassing defeat where he was so exhausted by the end that he got stopped in a fight where he was just trying to fight for his survival and make it to the end. And that referee did him no favors, by the way. He let him get beat to shreds, and then he stopped it. It's like, bro, like either stop it at the beginning of the round or let him get the moral victory. But it was horrible. So Azaitar is going to want to redeem himself, I feel like, in this spot. And I feel like that's why he took the fight. So should be a fun scrap, but I just think it should be a little bit closer to evens here. Dumas on the physical advantages, the anthropomorphic advantages. I give him a minus 150, but can't really get much beyond that.
I'll just add as well, man, considering the line and what you take, I'd be happy with plus 150, man. I think that's good enough. Plus 130, I'd even take him at. I just want to see that physique first, man. But yeah, any dog money is probably good against Dumas, because if the juiced up Azaitar is showing up, it's a lock, man. Dumas is shit. Like Jewish was saying, he's got no hands. He's got a nice guillotine to get him out of trouble, but I think that's low percentage in this fight. He's just shit everywhere, man. He's been training wrestling from Instagram, so he's going to try and do that. Probably gas himself out and get finished in round 2, man.
I could see it for sure. So with that being said, folks, let's move along to the next fight, where we've got a bantamweight matchup between Javid, Basharat, and Victor Henry. And this is a matchup that I'm really intrigued by, you know. Victor Henry, he's getting a little disrespected in my view. You know, this is a guy who's a very talented fighter, and he's being priced like, you know, he's got no chance to win the fight. Like everybody's read, you know, Sunday morning's newspaper, and Victor Henry gets finished for the first time or something like that. And it just seems a little bit too bullish to me. I think Victor Henry's a really good fighter. I think there's not that many guys at bantamweight capable of landing 150 significant strikes in 3 rounds. He can do that. He's done it on more than one occasion. He's not had many opportunities in the UFC. He's made the most of 2 out of 3 of those opportunities. And the one that he lost, he was a massive favorite. He got steamed hugely by the public, and he lost to Rafael Sunsao, a seasoned, grizzled vet, not an up-and-comer, not a guy who's just getting his feet wet in the UFC. And I think that the Nate Maness fight against Mateus Mendonça is what ultimately sold me on this. I just go look at the stat line on those fights. One guy had a competitive 3-round fight where the wrestling was back and forth. You know, the grappling exchanges were competitive at times. He outlanded him because Mendonça is a huge gasser and didn't have very much to offer in terms of defensive wrestling. But when you look at how Nate Maness handled him, he stuffed every takedown, beat the absolute tar out of him, and finished him in the first round. That's a different story, right? What happened there? I think Nate Maness is physical. I think he's strong as shit. And I think that Javid Basharat is not the most physical guy for this weight class. I think that he is long. I think he's awkward. I think he's savvy. I think he's got good footwork. I think some of those elements gave Victor Henry trouble against the Sunsao. So I'm not delusional. I don't think that Victor Henry is like the fucking lock of the card or something. But I, again, just question where is the confidence level that he should be the biggest underdog that anybody's ever been to Javid Basharat, right? Nobody's ever been this big a dog to Javid. So I think to myself, you know, a lot of people think of Javid as the better brother. I don't even know if I agree with that sentiment. Honestly, I think Farid is a more dangerous top player. You know, and I think that was kind of borne out in his last few performances. So let's see what happens. Two good fighters, but you will not be catching me laying -600 on a guy, you know, with 3 wins that aren't all that different from what Victor Henry's put together. I mean, Hani Barcelos is arguably a better win categorically than any win on Javid Basharat's record. And he did that at the +420 price range. So let's see what's up. We'll kick it first to our guy, Just Win Baby. How do you feel about this one, my man?
I think, like many fights on this card, the line's being driven by people being Muslim or having the name or the look. And I think it's the same situation with Basharat. He's the retarded brother of the two, in my opinion. Don't like his game. Couldn't finish Mendonça when Mendonça was done after a round. Barely finished that Jewish guy on Dana White Contender Series, even when he had extra ammunition after the, you know, the...
Hey, whoa. That Jewish guy? No, I'm just messing with you, dude. Come on, Jews could fight, man. Jews could fight, bro.
Does anyone even know his name? It began with an O. I know that much.
Oran Kolan. And by the way, that was an indictment of Oran Kolan as well, because he offered very little resistance in that fight. But please continue. And Jews can fight, but just that guy in particular.
No, they can't.
And Tom Levy would whoop that guy's ass. That's all I know.
Yeah, but he was lucky to get the finish anyway. It was like a minute left to go. He didn't put any resistance up. He should have finished him. I used to think, oh, well, he just plays with his food a little bit. But he is a good fighter. But I've come to the conclusion that he's just shit. So everybody should go and watch. I wrote it down. Go and watch his fight on the Dana White Contender Series in round 2 at 2 minutes 49 and see what you see, man. He does the same thing against Gravely Mendonça. He leaves his head open on the single legs and he's begging to be guillotined by somebody, man. It's just a shame none of them guys had the jiu-jitsu to do it. I think Victor Henry has. The submission line on Henry was +2,000, which I got in on early. It's now opening up at, I see it at 850 now on Bet Online. So considerable money's come in on that submission, man. I think he's the better striker, the better fighter Basharat's ever fought. And it's just because it's in Dubai and he's got the name and he's Muslim that it's driving the line, man. +450 on Henry is stupid. I think people who are going to put Basharat in a parlay with like Jubli and that are going to get fucked. It's probably not wise to do it. He hasn't got killer instinct, Basharat, so there's no way he's finishing this fight. If he couldn't finish Mendonca when he was gassed, he ain't finishing Henry, man. So yeah, Henry's the side for me, and I really think he could get that submission. If he watches a bit of tape, man, you can see it. It's there. The guillotine's on, man.
You know, and I actually think watching the tape back that he had Tony Gravely as good as submitted, and because of his coach, he let it go. You know, Josh Barnett was yelling at him. He's like, just punch him. And so he just like had an anaconda choke cinched, and he was like, fuck it, and just let it go and just stood back up and started punching him again. But if you look back at that fight, he wins a split decision there, even though he outlands Gravely by 1,000,000 strikes. I thought that was criminal. And by the way, Gravely got a couple takedowns that he did 0 with, where he was almost getting Kimura on all of them. So, yeah, I completely agree with your assessment there. What do you think about this one? TJB, do you agree or disagree, my man?
Yeah, I agree. He's kind of a junkyard dog. I think he's going to have to, like, break Javid Basharat, which is definitely possible, man. Like, this dude Henry broke Barcelos, man, just put a crazy pace on him, and that's what he does. Is he's just volume on volume. In a fight that's judged to go the distance, is over 2.5, is minus 275. I got to take a shot on the underdog. Give me Henry all day. I see some people taking a shot on the spread, right? Here's the thing with spread bets is I just don't know how much value. I don't know how to determine the value of somebody winning a round, right? Like, I'd much rather just take the money line and say the guy wins the 2 rounds for the much extra odds. I don't know, man. I think Henry's a good spot here, but I would just take a money line instead of the spread. Hope he gets a good decision victory. And I guess he has some finishing upside with the sub as well, but I just see this as like he has to break him over 3 rounds and just beat him on volume, and I think he could do so. So, yeah, give me Henry. I like him in this spot. I was there, actually, when he beat Barcelos, and I was watching with my boy Brandon. Dude, we were just silent the whole time. Like I think everyone in the arena was silent because we just couldn't believe that this dude making his UFC debut was out there being Hani Barcelos, and probably everybody in the crowd's like parlays were getting busted as we were speaking. But yeah, crazy one. I like Henry though in this spot, man. I'll take a small shot on him.
So I want to just shout out to this because I think it's a good point. WW says, devil's advocate, why did Henry perform so poorly versus Sun Tzu if Basharat is the better striker than a Sun Tzu? Number one, where is the evidence that Basharat is a better striker than a Sun Tzu? Because I don't know that that's on the record. Let's be very clear. Rafael Sun Tzu has been like a fringe top 5 guy for like 7 years in the UFC. Like, the guy's been around for a very long time at a very high level, winning really relevant fights. So I think that Basharat is very good, but I don't think he's proven that he's a Rafael Sun Tzu yet. Now, I did point out that I think they have some similar elements, right? The stance switching, I think, gave Henry some problems because he likes to square guys up to land multiple strikes in a row with his boxing combinations. But he's also adaptive, and he's very coachable. He's got a genius for fighting in his corner in Josh Barnett, who is going to be out there commanding instructions. And I think that the preparation for this fight, I think they will be able to use some offensive wrestling and grappling potentially that they couldn't use against a Sun Tzu. A Sun Tzu is really legit on the mat as well. There's just not an easy place to beat a Sun Tzu. Can't take him down too easy. And he doesn't try and win rounds by 10 strikes. He tries to win them by 2 that matter, right? Like, he just tries to stick you with 1 good shot and then outpoint you by 1 or 2. He outlanded Henry by 6 strikes. So in Henry's worst performance, he was minus 400, expected to win. He got outlanded by 6 strikes against a proven UFC vet. And then in his other performances, he was thought to be, I think it was like less than 60% against Gravely, but he outlanded it by like 80 strikes. And even though it's a split decision, I think that if they ran that back, he'd beat him again. That's my honest opinion. And then when I think about the Barcelos fight, almost everybody would have said Barcelos will take him down at will if he chooses to, which did not happen, even when he tried to. And then they would say, okay, but if it's on the feet, Barcelos is the cleaner striker. But the cleaner striker was getting interrupted constantly by touch. And I think that Javid has not dealt with that yet. I think most people respect the hell out of him. And Victor Henry has fought everybody. He's never been finished in 30 professional fights. So I think he's going to walk this kid down and try and beat his ass. And whether that works out for him or not, we will yet to be seen. But so far, so good for this guy. He puts it all on the line very frequently against tough guys, and nobody's been able to put him away yet. So at this big plus money number, they're asking me, hey, Liam, are you willing to go back to the well? Because by the way, when everybody's parlay was getting busted, like JB said, I was out there cheering in my home. Yes, get him, Victor, because I had the plus 425 and nobody was talking about him then. But I said, this is a guy who's honed his craft in Japan. He fought real guys. So I think he's ready to go right now. I think Josh Barnett is a real instructor, and I don't think he's sending his guy out there to phone it in. So I think they're going to go out there and scrap hard for 15 minutes. What more can I ask at plus 450? Next up, Muhammad Yahya is taking on Trevor Peek. This is the talk of the Twitter streets, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Muhammad Yahya representing the UAE. I believe he's the first fighter on the roster to do so. I could be wrong about that, but in any case, he is going to be a local attraction, right? I listened to some of the commentary on his fights leading up to this, and they said he's one of the biggest stars right now in the Arab fighting world. So bless him for it, right? He's here. He's got a big opportunity, but Trevor Peek is no fun fight. You know, I wouldn't want to fight Trevor Peek. I'll tell you that, because he's a guy that seems like there's no easy fights against this guy. You know, you're going to have to earn it against this guy. You're going to have to kill him. You're going to have to put him down, or you're going to have to outwork him for 15 hard minutes where he's trying to kill you, where he's swinging bungalows at your head. So I do think of Trevor Peek as a really difficult opponent. But now we also have to talk about, you know, the line getting a little bit, you know, minus 160, minus 170. I know what my guy Rich is going to say, so I'm excited to hear what he has to break down about this fight. But just from my vantage point, I always say skills win fights. I think that that's a good rule of thumb. And in terms of the skills, Yahya is not a bad striker. I think he's got good mechanics on offense, but he's a little bit chinny for me for a kickboxer. You know, I've seen him rock, dropped, hurt multiple times in his fights. So when that's going to be your style, going out there, getting into exchanges, pushing a pace and getting into wars, that seems like a bad idea against Trevor Peek. So I think he's going to have to be elusive here. I think he's going to have to try and pick his shots. And I think he's going to have to try and get on top of Peek anytime he can, because it's not easy to hold down Peek. And I think, you know, it will tax both of them. But I think you'd rather both be a little bit tired than Peek at full effect, just trying to kill you, because he's got a lot of power early. On Contender Series, I bet his KO at plus 250. Now it's chalk prices in the UFC. So I'm probably just going to let this fight go. But I feel like Trevor Peek is more likely to win this fight because he's a dog and he's very hard to put away. He's extremely durable. But I also just think skills win fights. And like, when you're asking me to say somebody's going to win 65% of the time, and I'm seeing them throw these, I have to just ask myself, like, am I really doing this? Like, Trevor Peek at underdog odds against most people, you're like, how could I not? But then, you know, in this spot, I feel like it's a tough sell for me. Rich, what do you think about this one? I know a lot of sharp people beat the line here by a lot as well. I think that's fair play. I'm just talking about the current state of things because I did not do that. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I wouldn't say anybody betting on Trevor Peek is sharp in this position at all. I can understand why they'd want to bet on Peek. He is the better fighter of the two. But this is one of the fights, like a couple of the main card fights, where I think there could be some fuckery going on, you know, being the first UAE fighter and the rest of it. If Yahya fought Jubli, the Indian fella, I wouldn't know what the fuck to bet because they're both as shit as each other. They're really bad. All his losses come from finishes, that Yahya guy. I've seen some questionable decisions in his UAE fights. He closes distance face first. He could easily get countered and knocked out like a one-time KO. But I'm probably going to be a degen and bet this fight, and I'm going to do it by Yahya submission. It's something like plus 600. Only a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy. But they picked Trevor Peek for a reason, man. I hate saying it like the UFC wants this person to win. But in this circumstance, obviously they do want Muhammad to win, and they have handpicked his opponent and give him every advantage they can. You know, a wild man with no technical striking, just goes there, you know, balls to the wall, doesn't give a fuck about cardio or pacing himself. So Peek should win. He should be minus 400, but just going to be some fuckery going on in this fight, I can tell.
There's been a lot of line movement here as well. You know, a little bit of tug of war, a little bit of push-pull. I believe the lines flipped on more than one occasion. I'd have to double check that, but this is all from memory. So really interesting fight here on paper. Jewish bettor, do you have a verdict on this one? What do you think, my man?
I feel like it's been all one-way steam on the Peak side, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, something just tells me in my gut that this fight either doesn't happen, like some weigh-in bullshit, or, the books find some way to have Peak lose this fight. Like you said, this is set up for Yahya, but just watching him get dropped by Dan Collins, I watched that fight. Wasn't really impressed with him at all there. Peak, he ain't the best in the world, but he did get his job done as a favorite in his first 2 UFC fights. He lost versus Chepe. That's different, but it's possible, man. If he's not able to finish this dude in the first round, I could see this one getting super greasy because his cardio isn't that good, and just like his pure technique isn't the best either. So this Yahya guy, he's either gonna have to get chinned or he's gonna have to break, or it's gonna go to decision. Yeah, I do think he's the better technical striker, but that's only if he doesn't get finished. Maybe get on top and wrestle this dude Peak, right? He's gonna have some upside there. That could work in the first round as well to slow Peak down. I think this one's a complete pass for me though, man. I don't know. I don't even see this fight happening, bro. That's my prediction for this week. This fight gets canceled plus 500 or whatever, if you could get that on some book.
You think they're not gonna let it go through, huh?
Nah, not on this one.
It's an interesting one because, Rich, you actually struck a nerve with me there. I had looked earlier at the fight ends by sub. It was around plus 500. And I just thought because that's a way to get a little counterintuitive here. I don't think most people expect this fight to end this way, but you see, on the one hand, it seems like Trevor Peak is going to walk through anything unless you put a chokehold on him. And I always say, there's being a tough guy and then there's a chokehold, right? It doesn't matter how tough you are. You just go to sleep like everybody else. So with Yahya in this spot, he's also been submitted on a number of occasions, right? It's like, even when he gets hurt, it takes people submitting him most of the time to get him out of there. So the ends by sub, at a very small indication there, that's something that I will potentially take a look at. Because again, you can get a pretty similar number there. But I don't know. I haven't decided exactly how to target this fight. I do think it's compelling, but I'm seeing now he opened plus 330 on Bet Online, and it is flipped to a minus 160 favorite. So really significant line move there. Probably one of the most significant in recent memory on a pay-per-view. But in any case, we can move along to the next fight here, guys, where Tim Elliott is taking on Muhammad Mokaev. And this fight will be kicking. Oh, actually, no, this will be the prelim headliner. So the final headliner, for these free fights on TV before we get to that pay-per-view. And make sure if you haven't already, drop a like on the video, get subscribed because we got plenty more great fights to talk about along the way. And in terms of this fight with Muhammad Mokaev and Tim Elliott, I think Mokaev showed in his last fight, he's a dog. He's a gamer. He wants to win these fights really bad. He's not going to quit on you easily. When the going gets tough, a lot of other people would have quit and found a way out in that fight for sure. In that knee bar, I'll tell you what, I would have quick tapped Magoo right there. If my knee starts turning inside out, bang, bang, boom. Thanks for playing, buddy. I'm out of here. I'm not letting that shit go sideways. So when you look, he really, got some respect for me. And the other thing is, I had predicted that somebody was going to win that fight by sub in round 3 because I thought they were going to grapple, and somebody was going to start to get tired and break. And so it ended up playing out that way. And instead, it was Rafael Filo who broke because he thought he had it and he didn't have it. So then when he didn't get the sub, when he didn't get the tap, and he just broke mentally, he was like, wow, this kid's just not going to quit. There's nothing I can fucking do to him. I could break his leg. He doesn't care. So that's the kind of psychotic winning energy that John Jones has, right? Vitor Belfort breaks his arm and then he's like, all right, fuck this. I'm going to break his arm back. Like, I like those kind of guys, right? This is a cage fight at the end of the day. So Mokaev seems to me like he's going to go to bat for your money, right? He's a huge chalk favorite, so I'm not breaking any news here. But I do think a lot of people are going to be on Tim Elliott this week, and I get it. He's a tough guy. He's a seasoned fighter. He's been around a long time. But I think that he's a little bit past that sell-by date. For me personally, in this division especially. I think that this is a guy who is always been struggling with the pacing in grappling-based fights. If it's all 15 minutes of hard-paced grappling and somebody else can scramble with him, I think that that's a struggle for him, you know? So I think that if Mokaev is a silly fighter, he'll stand on the outside and just try and duke it out and make it a really close, awkward fight. But I think that he can out wrestle Tim Elliott, and I think he probably will, especially if he keeps the pace on him. I would like to see him Matt return, a guy like this, because I think there's a chance he does break down in terms of the cardio, unlike somebody like Charles Johnson, who's more than willing to go 15 hard minutes of getting, just held against the fence. So for me, that's the kind of thing I'm looking at here as a little bit of difference in style. Please go ahead, my man. Kick it off.
Oh, could I take this one after?
Oh, it's a me.
Sure thing.
I'm going to go first on this one. He said divorced Elliott is a different animal. Yeah, man, I think there's a different matchup, man. It's a wrestle-heavy guy who, a young guy that the UFC really is looking to get done. Tim Elliott, really old for this flyweight division. I think the last few fights, he stepped up a bit. The Altamirano one was a good victory. You could say he had a little bit of chip on his shoulder, man, but I don't know. I kind of feel for the guy, but at the same time, maybe he should have just kept that story to himself. Like, man, how do you let your best friend bang your wife on your wedding night? I didn't know. Oh, whoops. Yeah. So, yeah, man, this is it, dude. We're going to go with the Tim Elliott is a cuck parlay. We got Muhammad Mokaev by sub, Kevin Kroom in bare knuckle FCs plus 195. That's 2+ money. That's going to get you all the shekels this weekend. That's all you need to know. Mokaev is going to break this guy round 3 sub. Liam mentioned that this week on Liam's first look. I think that's a good one at plus 1,100, baby. He's gotten a few of them already. So, oy vey, let's get these shekels this weekend, baby. I know we're going to get it. Round 3, Kevin Kroom. It's over, baby.
I always love the color that you guys bring to your breakdowns. I think it adds to the show for sure. Rich, what do you got here, my man? How do you feel about this one? Do you think Mokaev is the truth?
I don't know about the truth. No, I don't. I don't think he's ever going to be a champion, but I do think he beats Tim Elliott, and I agree on both accounts. He's going to win him either round 2 or 3. And Tim Elliott is a little soy boy and should have kept it to himself. No one wants to hear about your drama. He just did it for clout and people to be sympathetic to him. And I ain't with that. But yeah, I think that Elliott eating fucking 2 dates a day and a stick of celery or whatever he's on isn't good. The weight cut's stupid at this age. It's going to be a huge factor in this fight. He's going to come out hot in round 1 as always. And then he's going to fade. Mokaev 2 and 3, man, book it. It's likely a sub, but you got to be careful, man. It could be some grind and pound shit. So do you really want to get burnt by that? I don't know.
Yeah, when you look back, I feel like he will always preference the sub. That's something I do look for. What do I think the athlete would prefer? But he's also just a guy that could win this fight by knockout potentially. I do agree with that, but I feel like the losses for our guy Tim Elliott are a little bit pathological, unfortunately, and I think that he is due to get submitted. It's been a little while, so let's go Mokaev sub 2 or 3. I'm going to agree with my guy. I wouldn't say it's just a round 3 possibility here, because I also think the last thing I'll mention here as we move off this is, Malcolm Gordon, he doesn't have a good chin, but he can't grapple. He's a black belt. You look at some of these guys, they're not horrible grapplers that he's been facing. He's just been willing to go out there and grapple with everybody and kind of get those cage minutes in. I feel like in this fight, he's going to be going to put on a show. And he's been training with good guys. The Bahrain Training Center, they had a lot of success on the Contender Series. I think that they have pretty good guys training there. Ikram Alaskarov, a few others that we'll discuss as well. So I would not be surprised if we see Mokaev come back here in good form. Shout out to the people who mentioned the knee injury. I always like, bringing up those dynamics. Always, steel man the other side. But I do think that he probably wouldn't have signed this fight if he wasn't ready to take it. That's just my honest opinion. So,
sorry, Matt, I was just looking at the odds. You can get 650 for round 2 and 900 for round 3 just to win them rounds. So why be greedy, man? And be kicking yourself when he does get like a ground and pound TKO. So yeah, that's important to add.
Awesome. Next up, guys, we are on to this main card, rocking with Said Nurmagomedov and Muin Gafurov in the opening bout. We're back in the bantamweight division, stacked with talent, and these are 2 guys that are looking to make an impact. Muin Gafurov, listen, I've been fading this guy. That's just been the truth of the matter. I faded him hugely with Chad and Hellinger, added units as the price kept getting better and better. And Chad and Hellinger has got a record that looks way worse on paper than it is in real life. He's a good fighter. He's sound. He's got skills. He doesn't have the best build for MMA. So you look at the guy and he doesn't look like that much, but he's really put in the work and the effort, and he's gotten a lot better at MMA, and people didn't give him any credit. So he went out there, he fought him hard for 15 minutes. He got the win. Gafurov struggles to fight hard when the fights go the distance. You know, he could throw a pretty decent volume out there. I said that on my show earlier this week, and people were giving me grief. They're like, when does he throw volume? And I was like, I'm not saying he throws great volume, but he went from throwing like 100 strikes in his first attempt against Chad and Hellinger to throwing 200 plus strikes in his last fight, when he was fighting, what's his name, Castaneda. So I think that he's made some improvements. I think his cardio is improving over time, but it's still a work in progress. This just seems like a winnable fight by decision because I think both guys are going to gas at a similar pace. You know, the thing for me is I think Said is a way more dangerous finisher. You know, his guillotine is sensational. His striking is very dangerous on the feet. So I think he's probably a deserved favorite, but I don't know that it should be any wider than it is, because I do think that Gafurov has lost a lot of decisions. So I think people are going to say that there's no chance he wins a decision here. But I do think there's a chance that he wins a decision here. You know, I think Gafurov can push a half-decent pace in this fight. And last time out, Jonathan Martinez, I thought, lost to Said Nurmagomedov. But Said just didn't do very much. Like, there was just times when he's just, like, holding him against the fence, like, double overhooks multiple times. I was like, bro, if you're getting double overhooks in a fight, it's going to drive me crazy. So that was definitely a point of contention for me on the Said side. But Said, I called it when he was fighting Said Yakub Kakramanov, who's a much better fighter, that he was going to win that fight via submission, that front headlock choke. I think he's sensational with the ninja choke, and I would have to assume that that's how he gets it done again. So I would think Nurmagomedov sub plus 270, or I would not look at the Nurmagomedov side. But my guy Pepe, very sharp guy, says Said Nurm large for me. So shout out to you, brother. I think one of these Tajik boys gets the job done, but I think that Mohammad Naimov is the one that the UFC is behind. So best of luck to Said Nurmagomedov there. Rich, what do you think, man? We'll throw it to you next.
Yeah, I don't have much, man. The guillotine could be on. He's got a tight one. Gafurov is going to go for takedowns. He does leave his neck open. But yeah, he might slip off and end up on bottom, and maybe he loses minutes, man. Gafurov does, slow down a little bit. But it could be like some fucking hairy decision, man, where he wins round 1, 2's close, and it's some split type shit. So I'm staying away from that reason, man. I'm not totally sold on Said. He's got the name, but, he's just a bit flaky sometimes in fights, man. So, yeah, I'm staying away, and I haven't really got much, man.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Said is so talented, but he's just a guy that you could see his enthusiasm for fighting just slowly drain out of him over the course of a fight. He's so talented that he still doesn't get blown out in those fights. But you could just see when you want somebody with that dog who's going to push, who's going to keep going. I don't know that Said is necessarily that guy. So his skill, definitely better. But I just think that Muin Gafurov, he needs this. If he loses this fight, he's probably getting cut, right? He lost on Contender Series. He lost his UFC debut. Are they just going to keep running him out here to get beat? I mean, maybe, but I feel like it's like shit or get off the pot time for Muin Gafurov. So whether he can win or not, I feel like we're going to find out on Saturday night whether he's got a future in the UFC. Because if he can't win this one, they might just say thanks for the memories, my brother, and we'll see you next year. But in any case, we can move along to the next, we'll move along to our next capper. TJB, what do you got on this one, brother?
Oh, yeah. So, Said, man, I think this dude's got a big speed advantage here, bro. I think he's the way quicker athlete. And the thing you said was, he kind of slows down as the fight goes on, but I don't think it's a mental thing with him. I more so think, God could only bless an athlete with so much, if you're a fast twitch, bro, you're not going to have the best cardio as the fight goes along. Those, big motions, especially the spin kicks, the large, actions out of Said, they take a lot out of you. So that's the one thing. But I don't think he quits. The Douglas De Silva Andrade fight was a little greasier than I wanted it to be as a big favorite, but he still won 30-27 on one of the scorecards. I think 29-28 on the other two. So maybe it was just more so in the moment of time, because I went back and watched. He definitely won, but I could see I would have been nervous with that big price tag. Man, I'll go with Said Nurmagomedov in this one. I think he's going to get a submission, but I think his likelihood to get a submission is probably in round one. It's not going to be that much because, it's a round one submission. He is live for round two. We saw that in the Said Kakramana fight as well. But I don't think his cardio is that terrible, and I think he's probably liable to get a finish in one or two here as well. So, yeah, Said Nurmagomedov. Give me Said by submission. I like that.
Yeah, overall, I'll close the book here with just saying I think that Said is the more dangerous fighter. I think he's the better fighter. But the fact that the line isn't wider is like something that I took into consideration here. I'm like, why are they just leaving Said, who's a Nurmagomedov? Like, it's going to be anybody who doesn't know anything about MMA is going to instantly see that name and want to add it to the parlay. And I'm like, why is that not just getting wider? What, like, of all the things that are minus 600 on this card, this is not. It just struck me as a weird betting line. But I do agree. Said, more talented guy, more proven guy, but he just has enough red flags for me that I'm going to lay off it. But shout out to, a very sharp winning bettor in Pepe who is going to the well with this guy here and thinks that the number's too short.
Do you know what, as we're talking, and I know Pepe's on him and he is sharp and no denying that, but I'm going to go with Gafurov by decision. And for the number, it's plus 510. I think that's a bit wide in a fight that could be a split, man. So that's my official pick.
I love it. And I was thinking for this fight, in terms of the possible outcomes, I think that the most likely would be like a Said finish, then a Said decision, but then I would put a Gafurov decision. I don't think he's finishing Said at a very high clip at all. So I agree with you, my man. Counterintuitive because his record in decisions is terrible, but I think that that's why there's value. So in any case, let's move to this next one where we should be getting a finish one way or the other, you'd expect, between Ikram Aliskerov and Warlley Alves. Ikram Aliskerov, for me, gosh, one of the fastest submission bets I've ever won on that Kimura prop. That's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu right there. It was from a Russian. That's just fine. It was step 1, step 2, step 3, and it's over. And he submitted Mario Souza with that Kimura, cashed me a very nice ticket there very quickly. So I like this guy, Aliskerov. I don't think he's the, second coming. I don't think he's the world's best fighter, but so far, you have one loss to Khamzat Chimaev. What am I going to hold that against you? It's like very good fighter, caught him on the chin in a fight that was otherwise quite competitive. I'm not going to, feel like that's a guy who's not a challenging fighter. So do I think he should be minus 600 in this fight? No, I think that's a touch wide, but I just think that the books are doing this because they know that a lot of money would come on him if they are not making him a very cost prohibitive favorite. And that's because last time out, he almost killed Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes was down for a very long time, scary stuff. And his grappling is sensational. His striking is coming a long way. So that just seems like a tough guy to deal with. He's big. He's physical. He's not the fastest guy in the world. That would be a criticism, I suppose. But once he gets on top, I just think he's a very smooth operator. So give me Ikram Aliskerov by whatever the hell he wants in the second round here. Probably the first or second round, because I wouldn't be surprised if it came early. Warlley kind of unwinds himself a little bit. In terms of his skills, he's got a good guillotine. He's got good body kicks. He's got some decent punching power, but I don't like this weight class move for him. I don't like the fact that Warlley, his best wins were a long time ago. He's not very active. For a young fighter, he looks a lot older than he is. He fights a lot older than he is. So Ikram by destruction for me. What do you think about this one, Rich?
Yeah, I'm with it. I'm taking a submission. I think it'd probably be round 2 or 3 when he gets a bit tired. And there's less resistance. Like you said, short notice, upper weight class. Per Instagram, he's not training much. And say no more. Ikram probably gets his Kimura or some shit, head and arm choke. But yeah, I like the number on the submission over the TKO, man.
And Mbe saying, haven't seen anyone make the case for Alves. Listen, I'm all for it. If somebody wants to make a compelling case for me for why Alves should win the fight, I'd be all ears. But I just looked at the results, the footage, and I didn't see it. I just thought Ikram was the better fighter
I can tell you some more reasons why you shouldn't bet Alves if you want some more. He's regressing in his fights. He could be on a 4-fight skid. I know he beat Lazez by that, body kick, which was a bit weird because Lazez is a good striker. So yeah, he could be on a 4-fight losing streak, man. I think his time's nearly done. He's quite old. He's getting finished in his losses. He didn't get finished by Dalby because Dalby don't finish anybody. The list goes on, man. I don't think he's a good underdog this week.
Fair play. TJB, do you have a dissenting opinion,
No,
or are
no.
you making it a unanimous panel on the -600 favorite?
I'm taking every single favorite on the main card. Call me a square, but yeah, I like every single favorite on the main card. So I got to look at prop markets. I think he could knock him out or submit him. I think he's going to finish him, but it's just a little bit juiced, and I'm trying to figure out which one it is. It's kind of hard at both of these prices, so it's probably going to be a pass for me overall. But I think Ikram gets the job done. Let's say from top side control Kimura, just like he did in his Contender Series fight. I think he could get get Worley to the mat. He's just got to avoid that guillotine. That's about Worley's move right there. But I hear a lot of people saying like Worley Alves, he's only 32 years old, right? But that's in fighter years, he's a little bit older than that if you look deeper, because he's been finished a few times. He's been through the ringer. I don't know how much I take into him being 32 years old. That's the only thing I got here that I see upside is he's not super old as we thought he was. Maybe some people thought he was, right?
I think Ikram will avoid that guillotine as well because it seems to be body lock takedowns, not single legs. So he should be good, man.
Yeah, and I wanted to point out, JJ in the comments says, where does Ikram train at? And he trains at KHK Dagestan, the Bahrain training facility with a bunch of Russian fighters, that they bring in to supplement their training program in Bahrain. They pay for everything. They make it a lot easier for these guys to train, take care of their accommodations and stuff like that. So Ikram's there. A bunch of guys from Contender Series, Taha, Godsiev, a few of these guys. Mokaev, I believe, has been training there for various points as well. So there's been a number of people, that have passed through the gym, and I think that they're doing pretty good work over there. So to answer your question, that's where he's getting work at. And I agree with Jewish Better. I'm envisioning a Kimura finish here. Specifically, I just think that he's too technical, and I think he's going to understand. Last time out, I showed my power. So this time out, let me show I can take somebody to the ground that's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu ace and just easily submit them. And by the way, Colby Covington is about to be fighting for a UFC title, and Worley Alves submitted Colby Covington. So maybe it would be a nice feather in Ikram's cap to say, hey, I submitted the guy who submitted the guy who's fighting for the title. So make me #1 contender, or some other bold claim that gets him a big fight in the top 10. But in any case, guys, we have 3 bouts left, and they are the big ones. So let's get into the featured bout of the evening. It's in the light heavyweight division. Magomed Ankalaev is back. No nickname, 18-1-1. The guy has put together a hell of a record in the UFC. I believe 9-1-1. He's been favored each and every time out there. And I thought that he beat Jan Blachowicz. I'll just tell you the truth. I bet Jan Blachowicz there. It's a huge plus money price. Right before the fight was going to start, it was like, plus 3XX, plus 4, something like this, right? And it was a title fight. So I was like, I can't accept that. I had to play that. And I was lucky enough to get the draw, right? On the night of, I was like, man, they robbed me, they should have gave it to him, whatever. And then I went back and rewatched the fight. I was like, nah, probably not, I think that the swing round is probably round 1, but ultimately I thought Ankalaev won that round. I thought he did the better work in that first round. So I just think that he's a guy that is a title level fighter. He's never really shown anything less than that quality. Even the Paul Craig fight, when he lost there, he was getting finished in meme-like fashion after a 15-minute fight where he dominated every minute of the fight, essentially. So I look at a guy like Magomed Ankalaev as a little bit of a bonehead. I think that he should have won every fight in the UFC by finish. I think that he's that good. But he's been a lot more tentative. He's been a lot more hesitant, in my humble opinion, in recent performances. Haven't seen that same killer instinct from him. So that's something I don't love going into this Johnny Walker fight, just because Johnny has been showing a better propensity to survive for the 15 minutes, circle around the outside of the octagon, and fight smart. But I also think that you can only do that shit for so long. Magomed Ankalaev, at his best, can pick people off with shots, land really good strikes, connecting combination. And I think if he does any of those things, Johnny Walker's never had a good chin. He didn't have a good chin before he got to the UFC. He didn't have a good chin when Corey Anderson punched him off the ground. He didn't have a good chin in most of his subsequent fights. So unless he's on a new steroid protocol that's just unbelievable, where it refixes your chin and sews everything back together, I just have a feeling that Ankalaev's eventually going to get on top of this guy, leverage the fact that Johnny Walker's not the best grappler in the world and try and hold him down, pin him down, make him uncomfortable. I think I've donated on Ankalaev by sub a number of times. I might do that again. I might bet on the fight ends by sub. I don't see another way that Johnny Walker would win this fight. I guess he could win it by knockout, but I don't know. It just seems to me like Ankalaev's going to have the home support. I think he's probably going to do more in terms of output. Johnny Walker, even in these fights, he tends to put out a very small amount of output, most of it leg kicks, and judges don't always reward that kind of output either. So it's a tricky fight for me to call in terms of the value. I don't know that you're getting much value on Magomed Ankalaev, but I think he should win the fight. Shout out to Jesse Q, kind of seeing the same thing that I did in terms of the, he says arm triangle plus 1,000, sub plus 1,000, I think is what he means there. And again, I do think it's a possibility. Johnny Walker should have been submitted by Nikita Krylov, in my view. Nikita Krylov was just happy to have a sloppy hang-on decision in that spot, but his grappling just looked porous in that fight. Out-grappling Iwan Kutalaba didn't really tell me much. There's just a complete body mismatch there. Ankalaev just seems to have the better skills. I think he's a little bit more well-prepared, and I think he's got the home field advantage. So give me Ankalaev here. But, Rich, I'm curious what you think about this one.
First off, if you want to bet Ankalaev by sub, I'll be your book, man. It ain't happening, so I'll take your action on that. I do like a parlay buster on the main card. I do think it's going to be Gafurov or it's going to be Walker as the underdogs. So if Gafurov doesn't win, I will be putting some money on Walker just because of that reason alone. I do think it's going to be a close fight anyway. It's going to be some Derek Lewis versus Ngannou type shit where nobody does much of anything. Ankalaev's boring to me. He's kind of a counter striker too. He doesn't like rush forward and take the fight to people, which I don't like. Yeah, Walker's chinny as fuck, but he is learning as the fights go on not to be so reckless. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of how I'm attacking it, man. I just think it's going to be a boring fight. I guess over 1.5, if you can get that price, is good. Maybe fight goes the distance, something like that. But I don't have much interest, man. But that's how I'm looking to attack it.
For all my narrative nation, looks, I would have to bet on Johnny Walker or pass here on the money line. And I say that because, number one, he married an Irish woman, a man after my own heart. You know that I love to stop Brazilian hate on this program, and I would be stopping Brazilian hate technically by betting on a guy like Johnny Walker. So it does check a couple boxes for me, Rich, but ultimately the bad chin, some of the other things, going to give me some pause here. But let's see how wide this blows out again, because we're still early in the fight week, right? We're getting to you guys early with the bets and banter this week. I hope you guys enjoy that, but we're trying to make sure that you guys have an opportunity because it's an earlier start card on Saturday. I think it's 2 p.m. Eastern or something like that. So we're definitely going to have a lot more work to be done earlier this week. And I think that for this fight, I'm going to wait and see how much it blows out. If you're seeing Johnny Walker plus 400, plus 450, if it just continues to steam one direction, okay, well, then maybe I'll get involved. But if all the money keeps coming in on Johnny Walker and he becomes a very public dog, then I'll just sit this one out and have no problem doing so because it's Johnny Walker and he's let me down in the past. I thought that the Thiago Santos fight was very winnable. And instead he fucking dances around, doesn't engage for the full 5 rounds and throws away all my money. I was like, this idiot. So I just think that Johnny can be frustrating at times, but I do see the growth and improvement. SPG Ireland gets clowned all the time, but you know who's coming back, right, baby? Connor Mack. So if SBG gets one for the boys, I wouldn't be too surprised, I have to say. But Ankalaev, better fighter, better skills. So he should win, but it's light heavyweight we're talking about. The skills aren't anything to write home about more often than not. So while Ankalaev's good for light heavyweight, it's still light heavyweight. There's still a lot of inherent volatility. So I'm not really supremely interested. TJB, what are your thoughts on this one, my man?
Yeah, I'm with Rich on this one, man. If you want a book for this weekend for the Ankalaev by sub, I'll be your guy as well, man. I just don't see it. The guy doesn't often go for any submission attempts.
All right, here's I'm throwing this out before you go on. I will take a shoey bet where, because I'm taking the risk here of a 10-1, if I am correct, you guys have to do a shoey on the show the next time that you're on. If I'm wrong, I will do a shoey next time that I come on the air in honor of the two of you. So that's the challenge I'm throwing out. The shoey of the day, I would take a shoey bet on Ank by sub, or the fight ends by sub even, because I think that's very possible.
I'll even go one further. I'll agree to that bet, and I'll even add, I'll piss in my shoe if it happens. So
I'll drink this dirty bong water right here.
Oh shit! You guys are all in. All right. Well, there you go. I will not hold you to the disgusting things that you guys have offered. I will just hold you to the beer. But either way, I'm glad we have it inked. We got a challenge now for the show. So a good wager between friends here on this featured bout. Maybe that'll give us another reason to watch with a close eye.
I'm going over 1.5 in this one. That's it. That's all I got. I'll keep it short, simple, sweet. I think Ankalaev is an over machine. The only reason you're seeing this line at 1.5 is because of Johnny Walker's chin. Dude, I don't know, man. I gotta go with the over 1.5. Normally, I won't bet over unders, right? It's not my usual thing, but this is what I'm looking at here. I think Ankalaev is gonna look to wrestle early.
The other thing is, dude, they could both just look at each other and throw no strikes. Like, there's a world in which Johnny Walker runs in and gets clipped in the first 10 seconds, but there's more worlds in which both of these guys are going and just feinting at each other from the outside, land 8 strikes, and half of them are leg kicks in the first round, because both of them have not seemed interested in fighting half the time in their recent fights. They're content to just stand there and feint and look around. They're not looking to like enforce a finish and get in somebody's face. Iwan Kutalaba brought that shit upon himself, right? He forced the fight with Johnny Walker and fucked around and found out that Johnny Walker's huge. But I think that most of the time these guys are just going to watch each other for that first round. So maybe even a fight to start round 2. I don't know what that prop's going to be, but that should be interesting to watch. Guys, let's move. Oh, no, please go ahead.
So I was going to say, you're dead right. He's a Russian, man. What do? They coast. He's going to be scared of Walker's power. Walker's tentative himself. It's going to be a staring match for a minute. So yeah, I like that look, man.
Awesome.
Thank you, brother.
So some consensus there. We all think that this fight's probably going to go longer. Two guys that are probably going to be a little bit tentative in this first round. Potentially introduce grappling, make it a little bit more of a slog, of a grinding pace. But we've got a co-main event that should be exciting for everybody. So let's talk about Kamaru, the Nightmare Usman, moving up to 185 pounds to take on Khamzat Chimaev on short notice. Khamzat Chimaev was supposed to take on Paulo Costa. He's been waiting for a fight. He's been raring to go. The UFC has been telling him, hey, sit tight. We'll get you a fight. We'll get you in there when we can. And after, the fight gets pulled, they're like, hey, who can we call? Who can we get that's a legitimate guy that can have that name appeal that people know and they'll respect, and that if Chimaev wins, we can give him a title shot. I think, in my opinion, that is what they're trying to bolster here, some credibility for Chimaev to get a title shot up at 185 or at 170. It gives him a lot of flexibility, in my opinion, if he wins this fight. Usman's a former 170 champ. Hey, I beat the former champ. Give me a chance at 170. Hey, I just got a win over a former champion at 185. Give me a title shot, Sean Strickland. I think it gives him multiple options. Now, in terms of Kamaru Usman, he's a good fighter, right? Very good fighter, no doubt about it. I think people are going to get wrapped up in the knee and this and that. His knee's been injured for 10 years. So what does it matter if it's injured today or it's injured 10 years ago? It's like, it's just fucked up. His knees have been fucked up. We knew they were fucked up before. He's always done a good job masking that. Most of the time, he hasn't had to defend takedowns. People don't put him under a lot of pressure because he has an intimidating presence. Colby Covington didn't try to wrestle this guy, right? They both agreed mutually to just go out there and box. So when you look at those kind of scenarios, I think Usman's gotten away with some things for a while. I had said I would not be surprised if Leon Edwards takes this guy down. He took him down right to the full mount. What of that, right? Are we going to just pretend that didn't happen? That's it when he's fresh. That's in the first round. Oh, he didn't expect a takedown. Oh, well, goddamn. It's a fight. What do you expect? The guy's out there, you try and wrestle with him, he takes you down. It's like that. I'm not buying that. I wasn't focused. It's like, no, you were. So I think that in the wrestling, he is a good wrestler. He's not the best wrestler we've ever seen in the UFC. He's a fine wrestler. He's very talented. He's been hard for guys at 170 to get a hold of. Chimaev, I think, is going to be able to wrestle this guy. I think he's going to have some success. Jack Hermanson, big guy, had a lot of wrestling success at 185 in the UFC. How'd that go? He got tossed every which way but loose for the first 2 minutes of that contest. And over time, Chimaev was like, okay, now I got to manage my pace a little bit. So then he just held his ground, didn't let the guy get off any attempts on him. So I think that Chimaev is the more sturdy guy defensively in the wrestling from what I've seen personally. And I also think that his offensive grappling is way better. You know, the biggest X factor for me in this fight, and then I'm going to kick it over to my guest, is the fact that when you look at Gilbert Burns, and I've heard nobody talk about this week, and it's the number one thing that stood out in my mind. Gilbert Burns made it so Khamzat Chimaev was not comfortable taking him to the ground. Khamzat Chimaev took him to the ground. He got the takedown, and then the arm bars, and then the threat, the wrist control, the posture. He was like, whoa, this guy is really good. I'm good here too, but I might gas myself out. This is going to be a difficult, endeavor for me. So I'm going to get out of here and just keep myself safe and mitigate risk. So he stood up to the feet, and then he invited a brawl on the feet. So I think that when you look at the quality of jiu-jitsu from Gilbert Burns, it's world class. I think that when you look at that fight against Chimaev, it was his brightest day. I think that's the best Gilbert Burns has ever fought in the UFC, period, point blank. And I think he gave a lot for that fight. I think he really wanted to win. I think he sold out for the victory, and he came up short. Khamzat Chimaev got the win there. And Khamzat Chimaev's had a lot of time since then to get better. And he's been working on his skill, and he's been developing. And meanwhile, Kamaru Usman is now taking a fight where he's encumbered by the fact he's on short notice, right? He's dealt with injuries his whole career. There's speculation about injuries this week, but you're seeing the line is now actually respecting, some movement, right? It had come in. A lot of money came in on Usman, but now the line's starting to come back out towards Khamzat Chimaev. I think that that's justified. Listen, I would have loved if they had booked this fight 2 years ago, and we could have got Khamzat Chimaev plus 150. And I said I would have bet it then for a large sum of money. Unfortunately, I can't do that now because it's a minus 250, it's a minus 300, it's a minus 350. But I just think that Khamzat Chimaev should be favored here. I think he's going to win this fight. I think he's the bigger guy. I think he's the stronger guy. I think he's the better guy. I think he's the fresher grappler. By leaps and bounds, I think he's going to beat this guy by submission. So give me Khamzat Chimaev via sub, and I think he does it in the first 2 rounds. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I like Chimaev to get it done, but I think it's going to be a TKO in the first round. Initially, I was torn between decision or early finish. I really think it's going to be like super early, like within a minute or something stupid like that. Like he just catches him with something, he goes down, and then the ref waves it off, some bullshit like that. I think this is some another fuckery fight, to be honest. I have seen the news with Usman and rolling with Garfield, and he said he popped his knee. So there might be something into that. I don't know. I did like Chimaev without all that news going on, but it is a bit concerning. Yeah, you're dead right about the Burns thing, man. I think Chimaev, I don't know what belt he is. He looks like a purple belt to me with his jiu-jitsu. So I think Burns definitely would have subbed him if he had rolled around on the ground too much. Yeah, not too much to add, man. Chimaev, round 1, is going to fuck him up. It's a money grab from Usman. The same as Volkanovski when we get onto that. He's upper weight. Like, say no more, man.
I think to answer the chat here, I don't love the knee stuff. I don't really give a shit about that, honestly. And I wouldn't let that affect my decision, right? But I thought Chimaev was going to win inside the distance anyway. I always thought that. I thought that 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I think that one guy's been getting better and one guy's been getting worse. So for me, that's the ultimate decider for me, but it doesn't mean I'm right. I've been wrong in the past, right? I thought that Chimaev was going to finish Gilbert Burns. I salute Gilbert Burns. I take my hat off to him. I thought it was his finest hour. Could he do it again? I'm not sure. If they ran that back in a year, would it look the same? I'm not sure, but he caught him at the right time. He gave him his best effort ever. Okay, hats off to him. Can Usman do the same thing here? Let's not forget that Gilbert Burns had moments against Kamaru Usman where he landed big shots. Everybody wants to tell me how he's leagues and bounds better as a striker, yet they had competitive striking minutes, except that Kamaru was more durable, right? And he had better cardio. And I don't know that those things are true here, right? Those are both unknowns in this matchup. I feel like this is a very winnable fight for Khamzat Chimaev, and I think the UFC was very particular about that. First time ever representing UAE, probably the best guy to ever represent UAE in mixed martial arts. Do they want him to get embarrassed and lose in his first fight? I don't think they do personally. And I think that Paulo Costa was being brought in to get smushed, unfortunately. And I think the same thing is true of Usman. And my hat's off to him if he gets the win here. All respect. I don't see it. So give me Khamzat Chimaev.
One quick thing I'll say about Usman, because I don't like him. I don't like his personality, the way he carries himself. But I do have to thank him for that Leon Edwards head kick KO, because that fight was boring as fuck for like 4.5 rounds. And when Leon hit that head kick, literally the whole time I've been watching MMA, I've never been so excited in my life. So got to thank him for that, man.
Me too. And it was mostly because of the large sum of money that was justifying right there. So I said earlier this week on Twitter, sometimes it only takes one, and was able to hit that one on Kamaru. Tried to get him a couple times on the way out, but got him when it mattered, got him big when it mattered. So hopefully we could do the same thing here. But going to keep it a little bit closer to the vest and tighter on this one, because it's a chalk price as opposed to those plus money angles I was getting in the past. TJB, let us know what you think, my brother.
Let me cook. All right. Khamzat Chimaev this week. Smash the like. No. We don't smash the like. This week is smash. And that's what Khamzat Chimaev is going to do this week. Square play of the week. I'll put some money on it, man. Khamzat Chimaev inside the distance, KO or sub. I do lean that he does get the KO with a knee up the middle or something in that similarity. That uppercut he hit Ikram Aliskerov with was filthy. And Ikram's a minus 650 on this card versus a guy that I believe fought. What happened? I got to go back now and think in my head. What was the result from the Usman-Worley fight? Because they fought, right? Way back in the day, if I'm not mistaken.
Pass.
I'll pull it up right now.
It was a long time ago, for sure, if I'm not mistaken.
He beat him via unanimous decision, November 19th, 2016.
So there you go. That was a long time ago, but that fight went to decision, right? So, man, I got to go with Khamzat here. I think he's the new age. Like he said, he's the iPhone Pro. Usman's the iPhone 5. I'm with my man Liam. I'll take a look into that knee stuff. I think his knees was fucked up anyway. So, yeah, man, I'm going with Khamzat. Square play, inside the distance. But I do see some people taking the Usman side earlier in the week. Man, I got to go, though. I think he's got a 75% chance, at least, if not 80% chance to win this fight. With Usman coming in on short notice. He's coming up a weight. Khamzat's already fought at this weight. He's already had runs at this weight. He's had success at this weight. Knocked out GM3 in one punch. I think Usman's durability's been gone a bit. He's been choked out before. He's been punched out. So, man, and Leon, he took him down to round 1 in the first fight. Easy before he gassed, and then he head kicked him. But he took him down easy. You're telling me
we never even talk about that part, bro. We talk about round 1 when we easily out wrestled him, and then round 5 when we kicked his head off, dude. We don't even talk about rounds 2 through 4. Fuck those. Those are a distant memory, dude.
I'm just saying, in the first round, in the first round, Leon Edwards was able to take this dude down. I think Khamzat Chimaev is a way superior wrestler. Look what he did to Jack Hermanson, and just in their grappling match alone. He absolutely sunned him, right? And Jack Hermanson's a pretty good grappler in his own right at 185. I don't know, man. I don't think Usman's got the wrestling chops like he used to. If he did, in the second fight, he would have been able to take down Leon Edwards a little bit easier. Leon stunned on him. He was able to escape all the clinch situations and thoroughly outpointed him. The one fence grab was the only, weak sign, but he got the point taken away, still won the fight. This is in Khamzat's home country. I know I'm going on a bit, but there's just so much that supports a win for Khamzat Chimaev. I just see no world where Usman gets this done. I just don't see it. And for that reason, I could be wrong, but I don't know, man. If I out of both the favorites on the main card, this is the top two, the co-main and the main. This is the one I'm way more confident in. I would bet large money on this, and I think he gets it done in one. So there you go. That's my breakdown.
What's the general consensus in the chat regarding the knee popping bullshit with Gaethje? If people want to comment on that, I am curious to see what people are siding with, whether they think it's bullshit or for real, man. If people want to comment on that.
Yeah, I've seen people back and forth, but we'll definitely keep an eye on the chat for what people have to say there. Wanted to just give one quick shout out to our guy Contender View. Before, he had left a super chat on a video that I never saw at all. I never addressed. So I promised him, I was like, bro, we will get back to you if you ever have one in the future. So he's cashing it in today. It's like money in the bank. And this guy says, Liam, can I get that super chat? I want each person's most confident favorite and most live underdog. For me, I'll go ahead and say my most confident favorite. This is a tough one. Let me go with Ikram Alaskarov. I would potentially revise that if I had more time to think about it, but gut level, let me go Ikram Alaskarov. And then let me go with for my favorite live underdog, let me go with Mohammad Naimov. I think Dana White likes this guy, and I think that he's going to give an honest fight, throw down for Tajikistan, and I think that the crowd might be going for him as well. Gentlemen, did you have an answer to the question here for our guy Contender? And if you don't, that's okay too. But if you feel like you got something to give, then go ahead. Rich, did you have something?
Ikram favorite, Breeden underdog.
Fair play. And what do you got?
I'll go. I got to go with Hamza. After that, I just said all the reasons he was going to win, why I think so. Yeah, Hamza's my most confident favorite on this card. If we're just talking pure value standpoint, especially, he's my most confident favorite on the card. And then for underdog, I guess I'll go at Breeden and Henry. Those are. I know that's a double answer, but yeah. I think those are both good. My man Liam. We
definitely covered our guy Contender View. That's what I can say. I hope that super chat was worth it, my brother. Thank you for your support. If we ever miss, we'll always get back to you. So appreciate that. And thank you for your patience and understanding, brother. Wanted to just answer this one last question before we move to the main event. Has Naimov fight at 145 before? That's his primary weight class. Yeah, he actually stepped up at 155 on short notice and knocked out Jamie Malarkey as a dog. So for me, that is definitely a big factor that I'm looking at. Is Naimov is more comfortable at 145. I think he's going to be the bigger fighter in this matchup as well, because you got a guy coming down from 55 to 45 against a guy who used to fight 35 in the UFC, and he's been knocked out at 135 in the UFC before as well. And last but not least, a quick word from our guy Cashville Rican with the dono. Appreciate you hugely, my man. Our guy TJB has a dire phone situation, so we're going to be super quick here. He says favorite prop on the card from each of the gang members on the panel. I'll go again to the well with my guy Naimov here, and I'll go Naimov by KO. I feel like he's pretty KO reliant here. The money line is like plus 275 or whatever, but the KO is like plus 600. So I think that that's a decent way to target him. If you like that underdog price, you want to get a little bit more adventurous, you can go ahead and play that. Rich, did you have a prop that you wanted to give for our guy Cashville Rican?
The Wood fight doesn't go the distance.
Oh, perfect. And that's what you had mentioned before. It's a good way to get, both sides covered, more paths to victory there. Multiple outs. So there you go. A couple of good props from the guys. But with that being said, let's move to Islam Makhachev taking on Alexander Volkanovski. And this is a fascinating fight, guys. Rematch on short notice. Volk off the couch, stepping up, ready to do the damn thing. And this is a tricky one for me as well, because, when I just look at a bookmaker standpoint, I don't understand why Islam Makhachev is being, lined in this way, right? Like last time out, he's minus 350, whatever it is. He gets the win. He gets a win on foreign soil. Now he's the more prepared guy. He's got all the seeming advantages. It's taking place in UAE, and he's not that big a favorite. I just can't imagine that there aren't sharps out there betting 10 units at a time, max bets, whatever it is, on Islam Makhachev at minus 250. I have to imagine that's happening. So that's why I'm spooked by this price. I'm not seeing the requisite movement here. I'm seeing more movement on Khamzat Chimaev. And so it does give me pause here. I think they're going to get a ton of betting volume on this fight. I think it's going to be two-way action. But for me, it's a question of, do they still have parlays active when this fight comes down? Because if they do, I could tell you for 100% sure it doesn't matter if they have money on Volk. They will still probably be rooting for that parlay to bust. Just look at how this card is booked. Tons of favorites all throughout. And on this main card, especially, a lot of big favorites. So I won't belabor the points here. I'm going to let my guy, Jewish Bettor, kick off the breakdown for this one, just in case that phone gives you any trouble, my man. So fire off. What do you got for this main event? How are you feeling about this fight? Fascinating lightweight matchup, and could determine the number one pound-for-pound fighter in the sport.
Yeah, I had to get my charger real quick, so I got it. I'm all good. I'm here. To my dude Cash Rican, the favorite prop on the card is Khamzat Chimaev, inside the distance. If you didn't know, now you know, in the words of Dana White. But I'm going to keep this one short, simple, and sweet, as usual. I think this is an Islam by decision. I think Volk is pretty hard to submit. I think Islam is going to control the top position. If Islam does get a submission here, I don't think it's going to be early. I think it's going to be another fight. Volkanovski, I don't think he's one of those guys where, if he's on a camp, he's one of those people, he's going to be ready, right? Say what you want about the guy, but he's constantly training, and I think he was prepared for this call more so, if anything, just knowing the fight was upcoming. Charles Oliveira's out. This guy's in. He has it is a short notice, but he did have some time to prepare, and he's already been in the cage there with him once. It went to decision. We saw it that time. I think it's just going to be a little bit more of a dominant decision for Islam here. So yeah, give me Islam inside the distance. Hey, no doubt, bro. Let's cash this weekend. Everybody. I kill everybody. So, yeah, we're going to cash on that Chimaev, baby, all day. Don't worry about it. Islam also, but Islam, he's not going to get the finish. Volk, we already seen. He has no neck. He can't be choked. Brian Ortega had this guy in a full locked guillotine. The one thing I will say is Islam could little brother him, get him to the mat, finish him with an arm triangle. Man, the way Oliveira tapped so quickly, bro, like, you got to know the guy Islam squeezes crazy. He made Drew Dober just tap basically from his shoulder, right? So
shoulder pressure, dude. He's got the best top half guard in probably all of MMA, for sure.
Yeah, I would say him and Sean Brady right there. So
grit and guillotines, baby.
So yeah, man, for sure. The thing is, Volk is just a tough son of a bitch. I understand. I don't want to bet the money line though on Islam here. I understand there's going to be some sharp people doing so. I don't want to bet against Volkanovski at that price. But yeah, I like to hear what my dude Just Win Baby says. I'm sure he has a good breakdown for this one. Let's go, my man. Let's hear it.
Yeah, we're in agreement. Oh, sorry, bro. Yeah, we're in agreement. I'm not sure on the decision. And the reason why is I get that Volkanovski's tough. And he didn't get subbed by Ortega, so it is kind of hard to envision him ever getting subbed. But I do think the short notice, him in interviews saying he's going in for the kill, makes me think he's going to come out hot in round 1 and 2. And I don't think he's going to get the finish. So where does that leave us? He's got 3 more rounds on short notice. He may gas himself out a little bit by doing that. And Islam's got a full camp. He's going to put that pressure on. So I'm actually targeting Islam 3, 4, and 5. It's hard to pick your poison, man, whether it's a KO or sub. I don't know. I'll see what the numbers are. I haven't bet it yet. But, yeah, we're in agreement on the Islam side. It's just short notice for Volk. And obviously I like him as much as everyone else. He's a cool guy. But the situation is what it is, man.
I think that's fair play. In terms of where I come down on this fight, I think that the way it's being booked, it's forcing me into a dogger pass situation. But I didn't bet him last time out, and it was a much more enticing plus money number, right? So I'm definitely not going to jump into anything here. I do not know where this line's going to move. One of my skills, I feel like, as a bettor is I'm normally very good at just guessing directionally which way a line's going to move. And I normally am like, it's not going to get any better than this. But I also ask a sharp network of people. I'll say like, hey, man, do you think it's going to get any better? Like, I want this side, but want your professional opinion. Do we see a better number than this? Because it's very important to me to try and get the best of it. And when I'm looking at a fight like this, Islam Makhachev, I was able to get him at -185 against Charles Oliveira. It's one of the biggest bets I ever placed in my life. It was right before the fight started. The line's going down, down, down. And I'm just like, I don't see it. I feel like this is a setup fight for him. But I just can't see Volk as a setup fight. He's a guy that, yes, this is the best opportunity you'll get against him, right? He's on short notice, all these things. But I've always said what makes Volk special is the fact that he is the most difficult guy to break in the world. Like, you just will not get him to give up willingly. You have to, beat it out of him, knock him dead. Like, you got to kill the man physically because he's not going to die mentally. He is so strong in that regard. That's why when he's locked in that tight guillotine, there's no thought of, I got to tap, I got to get out of here. He's like, I have to find a way to stay in. And I talk about this. My guy, Blake Perry, won one of the biggest upsets of the year against Makoa Cooper. He's a +750 underdog. I said before the fight, you go back and watch on this YouTube channel, I said, some people look for a way out. This guy finds a way in. When everything starts to go fucking sideways, some people find a way out. Most people, right? Even good fighters find a way out. They're like, shit's going real bad. But sometimes people can find a way into a fight, even if it's not going their way. And we've seen, even in the past, Volkanovski's been hurt. He's been rocked. He's been wobbled. He's been in bad situations. Chad Mendes had him on ice skates. And you know what he did in that fight? He sat down in the pocket with Chad Mendes and knocked him the fuck out. And it was one of the most awe-inspiring things I've ever seen. At the time, Chad Mendes, people don't know Chad Mendes today. That's fine. Or they know him from BKFC or this and that. He was a high-level featherweight. He was an elite guy, pushed Jose Aldo to the brink.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah, exactly. Serious talent, all that stuff. He beat Conor McGregor in round 1, right? This guy, Chad Mendes, had some stuff. And I'm telling you, this guy, Volkanovski, just refused to lose that fight. He was getting knocked around, and he was like, I'm not going to lose. He just decided in that moment. He swung hammers in the pocket. He is a gamer of the highest order. So I respect the shit out of this guy. And Rich, last time out, I looked like an asshole. I was like, he's going to get submitted. Weight is a factor. Weight classes matter. I don't care that he's the #1 pound for pound guy in the sport. And I looked like a fucking tool. I was like, this guy is out here making it a scrap. And so I'm now looking at this fight and I'm like, Islam should win the fight. Everything is set up that way. But if I do not see this line reflect that between now and fight time, it is like a telling sign to me. Like, for example, I think back to the Aljamain Sterling fight. I knew a handful of sharp people on the O'Malley side, but I knew a lot of sharp people that were convicted. Like, this is max bet season on Aljo. This is a great play on Aljo. And I kept telling everybody, I can't fade an O'Malley in Boston, right? And so I don't want to fade a guy named Islam in the desert. Make no mistake. But I'm just looking at this and I say to myself, do I want to fade the #1 fighter pound for pound in the sport that is a fucking savage gamer? And when I think about guys that would go out there and phone it in, there's definitely guys I'd come up with. This is the last one on the list. I just feel like this guy, whatever he has, he will give on Saturday night trying to win. That's a hard guy to bet against for me. So Islam should win. No, I'm not going to, throw in my analyst credentials and just be like, no, fuck everything that matters. But I'm just saying, like, when I look at this on paper, I don't get where the line is at. I think it should be wider. And it's telling me that this guy Volk is going to come in there and throw hands with him. I said earlier this week on Clint's show that I thought that the fight not to go the distance was my gut lean here. I think either way, Volk's going to have to get this done or he's going to have to die trying, I feel like. So that's kind of the way I see this going. He got hurt on the feet last time. He hurt Islam on the feet last time. The ends by KO at over $2.5 I thought was kind of interesting as well. I just think these guys are probably going to end up striking a lot more in this fight than the last one. So fun scrap, man. I'm fucking fired up. I can't remember the last time I was this fired up for a pay-per-view rematch, because normally I'm like fucking sick of rematches. But this is one where I'm like, last time they threw me off. I was completely awestruck by what I was seeing. So this time I'm like, could they blow my mind again? Let's see. Let's find out on Saturday. What you got, brother?
Let me push back on that, man. This is just my opinion. There are no sharp bettors, man. I get people messaging me all the time and saying, oh, money's come in. Do you think there's an injury or some shit? Or do you think it's just sharp money? And I'm like, it's just money. It's just people with their money, with an opinion, making bets. It surprised me to see Islam at -220 when in the first fight he was minus 350 or whatever he was. And now he's got everything in his favor. So it doesn't make sense to me. But I can see the other side and why people are doing it, because the first one was a close fight. But I don't look at lines and see Islam at minus 220 and it not move and think, I just think, oh, dickheads are betting fucking Volk because of what happened last time, when they should be considering all the intangibles this time and seeing that he's only got a shot in round 1 or 2. If you're betting Volk, take a shot on the KO round 1, 2, or 3, because that's likely going to be his win condition. He's not going to win a fucking decision in Dubai on short notice, upper weight class. No way. So yeah, Islam's the side for me. And the stuff about Volk being, you know, a good competitor, mental and all that stuff, you know, mental resolve and the rest of it, it's all true. But when you're coming in on 10 days notice off the couch, when your missus has just had a baby and you've been at home fucking chilling, being a new parent, it doesn't matter whether you've got like mental resolve and like you're in there to fight. If your body isn't there, tough shit. So this is why I'm targeting round 3, 4, and 5 for Islam, because he's a tough fucker. But if the body ain't there, it means shit, man.
I agree. I think that fits my narrative of this fight as well. You know, I just feel like Volk is going to go out there. I kind of like the way he's approaching it from the interview standpoint. He was saying, I'm going to go out there and try and be dangerous in the early going. And I do think that he could hurt Islam. You know, Islam got dropped before. He's been hurt before, staggered on the feet. So that I think is his path. But I agree. You know, if this fight gets extended, if he's just playing around on the outside looking for low kicks and trying to make the fight extend, that's not going to be a winning formula in Abu Dhabi. So fun fight card, man. I think overall some live underdogs, some big favorites with some interesting prop lines as well. So I'm fired up, man. I think there's some good betting opportunities. I hope that we can bounce back this week. Wasn't my week last week, but I feel fired up for this card and ready to fire off some more bets. So Rich, please tell the people where they can find you, everything else you got going on this week, my man.
Yeah, same story. Check me out on Twitter, link in the bio for my Patreon. Doing a promo for November. If you don't profit, you get your money back. It's only $12 anyway, so give it a go. And yeah, good luck with your bets, man. Awesome card. Shame we got a fucking week off after this. I hate the breaks, man, but it is what it is. But yeah, good luck, everyone, and fucking win some money, man.
Absolutely. Let's close out strong. God bless everybody. Thank you all for watching very much. Want to just close out with some quick housekeeping notes for everybody. If you haven't checked it out, I did just drop the podcast for the first look. I'm also going to have this show out on podcast as soon as possible. Going to make the turnaround time on that. Also going to go back and timestamp both of these, clip them out for you guys as well. So if you're not already, get subscribed to the channel. More great content coming your way later this week. Thank you all for the support. God bless. Good luck. And we'll see you all next time. And we'll have all the same fun again. Take care, everybody.